Welcome again everyone to Python with Jeremiah, and in this video we'll be looking at 10 Python functions every beginner must know. Let's get into the video. The first Python function every beginner must know is the print function. The print function basically passes whatever you put into it into the console. It takes in a string, taking integers, taking floats. So the three basic data types we have. We can also take in list. So in this case we have a string and it prints out welcome to journal. We can also use a number here. Just put in any number and run it and gives us the integer here. So that's the first basic Python function every beginner must know, the print function. It basically passes everything into it out into the console. The next one on my list is the input function. The input function receives input values from the user. We call it with the input keyword followed by two parentheses, then whatever question you want to ask the user is always in quotes. So you put in your question, and in this case I'm asking what is your name, and if I should run this, it asks the user for the name. So I put in Jeremiah, not spelled correctly, Jeremiah. My name is Jeremiah because why? I'm using the formal print function we just learned. Your name is plus the name. Fine. We're going to the next one now. The next one in this case makes use of the string function. You look at it here, we're having an integer. We're having a name variable, age variable with a value integer 10, and we're trying to put it into this. If we use it without the string, we get an error, and there's a problem because we can't add string with numbers. So if I should run this in this case, running it using shift, just going up here and running it, and we have our, you see, it's giving us can only concatenate string and not integers to string. So we have to actually make use of what we call the string function. All you have to do is wrap it around the variable with the int value. So age has the int value, we wrap it around it, and it converts it and smoothly adds it to this. So run it again, and this should run fine. So we have I am 10 years old. The next one, in this case, we're making use of all we've learned so far. We're making use of the input function, the print function, the string function. We're now introducing another one, the int. Now, what if we're receiving an input from a user asking for the age? I want to add another integer to the value. Now, age, when asking for input from a user, it always returns a string value. So, and you can't add a string just plainly to the number 10. Is what I mean. You can't add age to 10 just like this. It runs and gives an error because this returns a string plus an integer. So you convert this. Just as you convert integer to a string using the str around it, we convert a string to an integer by using the int around it. So it adds the age, it converts the number the user entered it to an integer, adds it to 10. Then to print it out, remember it can't print out, this returns an integer, so it can't just add 10 years without the string wrapped around it. So it says your age is, it converts it to a string, and we have this. See the next one, maybe we should run this before we go to the next one. So it asks for the age, and we say 23. Your age will be what? 33 in 10 years time. So it adds 10 to the age, then converts it back to a string, and we have what we have there. So the next one now. The next function I want a beginner to learn and must actually definitely know is the len function. The len basically returns the length of a string of an iterable. It can be a string, can be a list, can be anything. So in this case, we're having a string and we're saying your lucky number is. Now we're converting it to a string because the len function returns what we call an integer. And if I should remove this, if I should do it without the string wrapped around it, we're going to have an error. So you can see this wonderful error sign here. So it's telling us there's an error with this. And if we should actually run it now, if we should run this, you can see it's going to give us an error, can only concatenate string, not integer. So I think we already covered this earlier on. So the len function basically gives us the value in terms of integer, and if we should run this now, this should be very fine, and this gives us a lucky number is 8. Now it counts it starting from 1, not 0, because it started from 1 and gives us 8. So the len function is basically very useful in that case. So learn it and stick with it. We'll go to the next one. So in this case, I'm dealing with an older example here. This is another example, and I want to be talking about the string.format method. So in this case, we're having the plus and all. With beginners, you actually totally avoid doing something like this. Adding. It doesn't make sense. So what you can just do instead is use the dot format method. All you have to do is call the format, which is also a function at the end of the string that you're printing, and just go in and put in whatever you want to print. Put in the curly braces, whatever it is. So your age will be, it has to be here. Then we'll just put what we call the curly brackets, the open and the close curly brackets. We'll put it there. And then the format, once you're there, you just have to call in the 10 years. 10 years. And this is fine. So what this does is takes in the value 10 years and puts it straight into this. And we don't need to actually convert to a string or anything like that. And we should run this. It asks for the age, let's say 12, and it tells us you'll be 22 in 10 years time. Runs fine without any error. So the format should definitely be a beginner's toolkit. Another way to work with the format is by just making use of the F string around here and getting rid of whatever it is here. So you don't need to add a dot format anymore. The F already stands for it. And all you have to do is put in the 10 years here. 10 years, and this also runs fine. So you still don't need here to convert to a string. It works very fine. Let's run it. I'm going to have the question again, 10 or 12, and it says you 20 in 10 years time, 20 in 10 years time. So you can see both methods give us the same result. Let's go to the next one. In this case, we'll be dealing with the max, the mean, and the sum. So we'll be talking about three functions here. So we have a list, numbers, then we have 12, 30, 34, 23, 90, and 4. And we make use of the max to determine the maximum value in this string. So all you have to do is call the max and put in the variable name numbers, which takes in the list. So basically, it does the work for us. So the max function looks for the maximum value in this list. In this case 90, and it prints out the maximum value in the list is 90. It does the same for this using the second method we taught about the format method here. We have the mean, just like the max, we call it mean, and in brackets we put in the name of the variable numbers that takes in the string, the list. And for the last one, the sum also does the same. So the sum can take in a number of values, number of lists, and add it up together. So instead of adding them just individually, you can just store the values in a list and call the sum function on it by putting in or passing the variable name that carries or that takes in the list. And this works just fine. Let's run it and let's see how it does. So we'll run it, and the first thing, the maximum number in the list is 19, just as we said, and the minimum number is 4. Yes, just like that. And the sum 163. So you can take your time to add this up and you find out it is 163. And that's all about the max, mean, and sum. Very interesting concept. Then let's see the next one. So before going into the last one, this one we're talking about the range function. The range function is always used, always used, and popularly used on programs, and it's something you should know. So the range function basically takes value from 0 up to the number before the one stated. So it starts from 0 up to the number before this one stated. This range function can be in terms of taking one parameter up to 3 parameters, in this case 1 parameter, and if we print this, it prints out from 0 up to 4. And let's run this, and we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Fine. So you can also give it a start value and say I only want you to start from 1 and end at 4, and it does the same end at 4, so it starts from 1 up to 4, ignoring the 0. So the range function works very fine when you need to iterate through a value, makes it so cool. So that's something you should add to your toolkit as a beginner. Let's go to the next one and the last one, the final one. Here's what I have for you in the last one, the final one here, enumerate. So the enumerate function just takes in a value and lists it out in order in which you want. So in this case, I have a fruit variable storing a list of fruits, basically apple, mango, pawpaw, and pineapple, and I'm saying for x and fruits, I'm taking this x as the enumerate value. So x here, because we're making use of the enumerate, x here stands for the numbering for whatever it is we have. So we're saying for x and fruit in enumerate, we have the fruits, and I'm telling it to start with 1. Now, for instance, if I just get rid of this, just to show you how this works, so as not to make it too ambiguous, we have for x fruit and enumerate fruits, and I'm saying prints out x and gives an hyphen and the fruits accordingly for each fruit. So if I should run this, I have 0 to apple, 1 to mango, 2 to pawpaw, 3 to pineapple. So this x here just stands as the enumerating. This is what the enumerate function does. It helps us in numbering whatever it is we are actually printing out. So in this case, it starts from 0. And of course, when numbering, I want to start from 1. And I can just pass in a parameter and say start with 1. In this case, it starts with 1. If I should run it again, it gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, making it so easy, readable, and more convenient. So that's how the enumerate function works. See you in the next one. Bye for now. So we've come to the end of the 10 Python functions I have for you, and there are many other Python functions out there. So take this as a beginner. Take it, add it to your toolkit and learn more. Have fun while learning. God bless you. See you in the next one.